Hello and welcome to Around the Lens, episode 74. I am your host, David J. Murphy. Around the Lens is a live weekly visual journalism roundtable show coming at you every Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. I am, again, like I said, your host, David J. Murphy. I do this show every week with my co-host, Zach Roberts. Zach.
Hello, I'm Zach Roberts, as previously stated. If you want to learn more about us, you can head on over to aroundthelens.com. You can follow us on Facebook at AtL Podcast, and Instagram at Around the Lens, and on Twitter at ARoundLens.
You know, Zach, what I love about this show and our banter is that you think after 74 episodes or 73 episodes, we'd be pros at this, but nope, it's like we're doing it for the first time every time.
You think I'd actually remember all of these things? I have a piece of text up on my screen right now that I'm reading. So, yeah. Just to let you in a little bit behind the scenes for Around the Lens.
Whoa, behind the scenes. We should do a behind the scenes show. I'm sure it'll be fascinating too.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone. And of course, our other co-host, our second co-host, Ron. How's everything going over there, Ron? Who is Ron?
Gentlemen, I am alive and well in Hawaii, and things are looking great.
All right. Ron, I have to give you some dialogue to say since you're like our second co-host.
Yeah.
Ron, what would you like to say every week at the beginning of the show?
Something about peace on earth, goodwill toward men, something like that.
He can be the guy that says the Saturday Night Live, what was it, and this is Monday night or something like that. I don't know. Anyway.
And this is Around the Lens. All right. Enough fooling around. Let's go to our panelist. Panelist, Carl Johnson. Carl, tell us about yourself.
Well, I'm looking out my window at a beautiful Cook Inlet. I'm in Anchorage, Alaska. Longtime nature and landscape photographer, and sometimes sort of ethnographer, I guess you could say. Photographing Alaska's not only landscapes and wildlife, but its cultures.
Nice. And you are actually intrinsically tied to our giveaway this month. Do you want to tell all the lovely listeners what they could potentially win this month if they enter our contest?
Sure. What you could win this month, if you do all of the steps just right and get drawn, is you win my new book, Where Water is Gold, Life and Livelihood in Alaska's Bristol Bay. Tells about the amazing part of Alaska, which is the Southwest region, the Bristol Bay region, from commercial fishing to traditional and customary subsistence practices. And it's a gold medal of the Independent Publisher Book Awards and a silver medal winner in the Nautilus Book Awards.
Right. If you would like to win that awesome book that Carl just so eloquently hyped up, all you got to do is three simple things. You have to sign up for the Around the Lens newsletter, which you can do at aroundthelens.com. You have to like Around the Lens and Carl Johnson's ArcLight Facebook page on Facebook. And you have to answer the simple question, where would be your dream place or dream subject to photograph? So do those three things and you are entered to win. We are giving away 3 books this month, thanks to the generous Carl Johnson. So don't miss out on your opportunity to take advantage of that great deal. All right, great. Let's get on with the show, guys. We got a lot of show to talk about tonight and not too much night left to talk about. Anyways,
there's some good English.
I'm getting there. All right. First topic I want to talk about tonight. Now, we touched on this a little bit last week, but I think it's such a big topic, really. I think, doing 2 shows about it, or at least doing another part about it, I think is worthy. Obviously a photographer who completely and utterly destroys their career to manipulate imagery is not something that happens every week, thankfully. It's only those rare cases, and I think the fact that it's rare is noteworthy in that either one, people aren't getting caught, or 2, it's just not happening as that often. It is still a rare occurrence. I mean, I only hear about a couple times a year where this actually happens. Still more than it should, but again, last week we talked about Souvid Datta and his image manipulation. He took a photograph somebody else shot, and he put a picture in his picture, and he claimed it to be his, and we talked about the ethics of image manipulation. I want to talk more about this week is the ethics of photographing a 16-year-old girl being raped. So, that's another thing that he's under fire for, essentially, because, he said, the woman wanted him to photograph her, but, this image, which, went all over the world and was, lauded by different organizations. It was awarded. He earned money off this image. It raises the kind of question there: was he right to photograph this? Because I mean, again, this is an underage girl. In most countries, I would assume this is illegal to do this. So, especially in America. So, was the sort of impact or benefit, I guess, that this image could potentially have risen about, the plight of women facing human trafficking, worth the sort of risk or legality of photographing what he did? So let's throw it over to you, Carl. What are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I want to say I don't have a problem with him photographing it because the act of photographing a minor being raped is illegal. I think just because something's illegal doesn't make it wrong. For example, in the United States, increasingly states are trying to make it illegal to photograph environmental disasters, pig farms, dumping sewage into the water, that kind of stuff. So just because it's illegal doesn't make it wrong, but the type of illegality, I think, is wrong. Now, in this country, in many countries, the laws increasingly are protecting victims, particularly minor victims of sexual violence. In court proceedings in the United States, they're only identified by their initials. We hide their identities, we protect them because it's bad enough that they've been victimized, but being further victimized by being exposed. Now, even though the subject of the photo may have given him permission to do it, in most countries, she's not of an age where she can consent. She can enter into a contract or an agreement and give her assent to engage in that activity. So if the desire is to photograph and bring to awareness sex trafficking and the fact that, yes, these women, regardless of their age, are being raped because they're involuntarily engaging in the sex trade. There are a lot of ways you can photograph a subject without photographing it explicitly and still get the message about the subject. You don't need to photograph an entire tree to depict a tree in a photograph. There are a lot of ways I'm sure he could have photographed that young woman in a way that would have brought the horrors of sex trafficking to light without actually photographing that very graphic, very sensitive and dangerous moment where she's actually being sexually assaulted.
Yeah, no, I agree. There's ways to kind of represent that. And I think that was something that was also mentioned in the article we link, is that, there's other ways to tell this story without going into sort of the extreme or the graphicness of it. Your thoughts, Zach? I mean, you had a rant on this last week, but
definitely go back because I kind of had my thoughts. I kind of expressed those thoughts, but one big thing as well is that this image, even after that, was then used to promote a website, a contest website, a paid contest website called Lens Culture, and which is also associated with Magnum Photography, which is kind of one of the pinnacle you learn in photojournalism school, you learn in photography school. One of the first places you learn that you dream of working for is Magnum. And the fact that they're associated with this kind of using a photo like that to promote it, like you wouldn't use Eddie Adams' photo of the execution, the handgun against the Vietnamese soldier's head, or North Vietnamese soldier's head. You wouldn't use that as a promotional photo. At least, dear God, I hope you wouldn't. You wouldn't use photos of the September 11th. Like the few places that have actually kind of tried to do something like that, tried to be edgy, like their company has basically burnt down because of it. Yet this 16-year-old girl being at best sexually assaulted, at worst her entire life is destroyed, especially since her name, her story is told, and her face, and with no real long-term benefit of this is the idea to bring awareness and we're pulling her out of this, or, you know, or something along those lines. Like, that hasn't come out of that. And that doesn't seem to be this guy's goal. He's not an advocacy documentary filmmaker or photographer. I mean, there's a great documentary, won a bunch of awards. I think it's the Brothels of Bombay. I think I'm getting the name wrong. But that delved into the young women that in India and other countries that end up having to sell themselves, whether through, you know, choice, and I'm putting big quotes because, you know, a lot of these situations, yes, they may not have anyone with a gun against their head, but they don't really have much of another choice to support a family or to support anything else. That this is what, if there's not an edge of goodness in there, which there doesn't seem to be from this photographer, then this, I other than just saying it's completely terrible and we shouldn't be supporting this sort of thing. I know that we're, as photojournalists, we're not supposed to be political. We're not, you know, have like a push, but I think it's very hard for anyone to argue that as photojournalists, especially as freelance photojournalists, that we don't advocate for a certain line of thing. Like, one goes to shoot photograph a clinic in Syria from Doctors Without Borders to bring attention to that cause, to bring attention to what the good work that Doctors Without Borders is doing. You know, like, you follow a group, whether it be an environmental group or whatever, you cover the BP oil spill, you cover Bristol Bay's, you know, how gorgeous it is now to use a discussion about what it could become if Pebble Mine ends up going through. By the way, I'm referencing Carl's book right now. This is what we do. This is so much of what, especially freelancers, where we're not told by someone higher up. To me as a freelancer, I don't go somewhere unless I care about the subject. Like, I have very particular fields that I go into. And so, I know this is kind of going off a little bit on a rant here, but, you know, me never known to go off on a rant, but, you know, I mean, like, this is why we do it, but I don't see, and I've not read or heard anything that this is why this guy did this work. And I haven't seen him, you know, defend. I mean, like, even National Geographic, you know, helped out eventually helped out the woman, you know, with the famous eyes photo of the Afghan woman, and you know, and that's Steve McCurry. So, and that's a whole different discussion. But, and I just don't see where this guy has anything other than, you know, it's a photo that would win him awards and get him more grant money, and you know, it's the kind of the worst part of, you know, essentially a step below a paparazzi photographer in this realm, where he's not even photographing a celebrity at their worst moment. But I don't know if that made I don't know if that made a lot of sense, but I'm just so disgusted. The more and more I continue reading about this, and the more and more I think about it, of this whole situation with this, and the fact that, you know, we're not, like, I don't know. I know we don't ride somebody out on a rail at this point, but if there was a metaphorical way to do that in the photojournalism community, I think we should do it.
So, you know, I was looking at the story, and a lot of the things I see here point to the sort of the fact that Lens Culture used this image to inappropriately sell, I guess, their contest. Yeah. But I mean, if you're given access to this kind of subject matter, you know, how do you, because I mean, you can photograph illegal things, you know, all the time, or, you know, there's a lot of illegal things that are photographed. I don't know. I think
Carl can
I got some thoughts on
context with it. I mean, Carl, if you could put it in the context, because we did a great interview with you a while back that we kind of had this discussion about photographing native cultures, and about how you go about that. And there's a process and there's a care to photographing a culture or a people that have been screwed around with. if to say the least. I don't know if you want to speak to that. If you had something else, go for it. But like that's something that's what immediately comes to my mind.
Well, I'll answer that, and then I'll get to my thought that I was having that was brewing there. And that is, what I do when I'm photographing it is I approach the people ahead of time. I explain to them exactly what I'm doing. I give them, some benefit out of the photo. Pretty much everybody who hosted me at a fish camp or had me on their boat or whatever, everybody got a copy of the book. I keep in touch with people, and I'm honest about what I'm going to do with the photo and how it's going to be used. And one way where this photo could be useful is if he were taking these photos and others and testifying before a committee in Congress about a bill related to sex trafficking. Yep. That would be a time where I think these photos would be appropriate. Yep. But for him to essentially get financial gain for no other purpose, no meaningful social purpose like what Zach was talking about, and get grants and award prizes and all that kind of stuff, and not using the photo in any way that, because the value in the photo is not what it can do for him in his career. The value in the photo, the only value in taking a photo like this, is to do something to stop that activity. That's really where the line is drawn. Don't take the photo if you're doing it just to further your career. These are the kind of photos that you only take if you're going to do something about it and be a part of the solution. Yeah. So that's my thought. And shame on the culture that's developing where a photo like that, where apparently the young woman is obviously a minor, is celebrated and have money thrown at it and awards thrown at it, where the people behind those decisions think that we need to get these more edgier and edgier images out there in order to push the envelope, stretch the limits, whatever kind of cliched metaphor you want to use. So shame on the culture that promotes that and rewards him with what he was rewarded because of this photo.
Yeah.
All right. Ron, any thoughts from the peanut gallery?
Yeah, just the idea that whatever publicating entity, what do you call it, publication entity, we should bear some responsibility as well, rather than just the core photographer by himself. I mean, whoever. It's one thing to take a photograph, another thing to publish a photograph. So whatever publication entity responsible, if it's a problem, they should have some culpability as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the more I think about this, and I agree, this could have been told, with more suggestion, than explicit detail. Perhaps the 16-year-old girl leading the John or whatever into the bedroom would have been able to tell the exact same story without the explicit nature, and I think get the point across.
Well, one of the big discussions that people have talked about, and because a lot of people have photographed the sex trade in either Southeast Asia or in India or wherever, and usually the photos focus on, especially during the act, if they're allowed in that room, the photos focus on the John, as it's called, the person that is committing the crime. In this scene, in this photo that again was used as a promotional image, and even after many people online called out lens culture and called out the promoters of this, it was still kept up and they didn't take it down. I don't know if they took it down until like this whole deal came out. The fact that he, God forbid, because the problem was that he doctored the image, which I'm not limiting that he doctored the image in any way, shape, and form, but I do believe that almost more important is this discussion that we're having right now, and that a handful of articles written. Time wrote a piece. There's a great article that was, I believe, originally in Medium, but republished, and I could be wrong. Apologize to Petapixel, but over at Petapixel, photojournalism. It's time for the photo. It's time for the industry to change before it dies, and it delves in and compares McCurry's doctoring of images, discusses Robert Capa's Falling Soldier, which I'm sure most people are probably familiar with the photo. It portrays a Spanish Civil War soldier falling backwards. It was faked. That photo was faked. And it discusses a whole bunch of things, but it kind of delves into the fact that we use these photos and the fact that our obsession on guns. So I mean, there's been a huge kind of discussion about this, but I'm happy that it's taking this turn on kind of how we photograph and how we, especially. I mean, obviously, this photographer wasn't kind of a Western white guy, but especially as like everybody in this room right now, this digital room, is a Western white guy, and we, and so we have to be very careful on how we discuss it and how we look at these things. And I see how this photo was used and how it went through the editorial process again as kind of a problem with how we view as photographers, as editors, as whatever, how we view the people that we're photographing. And that's something we really need to kind of start having a conversation about, which we kind of keep starting to have that conversation. Like we had that conversation after McCurry and it went away. And then we had this conversation back when that photographer digitally altered, I forget it was Getty or Reuters, digitally altered the smoke over the bomb blast in Israel or Palestine. And we keep having these, and then it just kind of goes away, and then everybody kind of goes back to talking about other things. And I mean, I feel like we have this discussion kind of continually on this show, but like as a community as a whole, we don't like to criticize and we don't like to talk poorly about other people. And that kind of limits us from having a discussion that I remember having these discussions happening when we put our photos up on the wall when I went to art school for photography. We had that discussion. People were in that critical room and they would tear that photo apart in hopefully a constructive way. But we don't have that, even though we have more avenues for discussion than we've ever had in our entire lives, whether it be podcasts, whether it be websites, whether it be forums, whether it be Petapixel, whether it be F-stoppers, whatever. And we just kind of have shut up about it. And we don't like to talk bad about it because I guess maybe it'll hurt our career if we talk poorly about somebody else likes. I don't know. But yeah.
All right. Good deal. Hope that got out of your system. Yeah, it's never ending. There's going to be something that happens. Somebody's going to make a mistake and do something stupid, and we're going to talk about it.
Let's distinguish mistakes and stupid.
Yes.
From something very intentional.
Yep.
Well, I mean, you can still be stupid and do something intentional.
Making a mistake and identifying in a photo something as an antelope in South Dakota when it's actually a pronghorn. That's a mistake.
Yeah. Yeah. No, purposely photoshopping, digitally altering your images is not a mistake.
The mistake is being caught.
Yeah. Releasing classified information to the Russians, that's anyway.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No comment. Hey, if you got a chance,
I had to drop something in there.
I know, right? Ron, can you tilt Carl, can you tilt your camera just down a hair? A smidge, a scotch.
Okay.
Or that. It's a skosh. Anyways, let's move on to our next topic. Let's get to something a little bit lighter than documenting underage rape. But it's also similar. Documenting slow motion content. So, no. Sorry. Bad joke. So Sony, the innovators extraordinaire with regard to, what they're doing with the Sony Alpha 9 or whatever it is. And, I think they're just really good at innovating in the camera space. So much more than, Nikon and Canon are right now. Which, by the way, I found out on one of the latest Petapixel podcasts that Sharky, friend of the show and former panelist, he has actually moved away from Nikon. He will not be shooting Nikon anymore, and he has moved to Fuji primarily. So interesting shift there. Anyways,
Sharky, I'm going to have words with you, Sharky.
He is not listening. Come on. But yeah, we should bring him on the show and talk about that. Then you can show him the difference between a Fuji sensor and a Nikon sensor.
Well, and then he can show you a difference between a Fuji sensor and a Panasonic sensor. Anyway.
Well, actually, my Nikon D800 has a Sony sensor.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah. Mostly, I don't know if the D600s is Sony or not, but yeah.
And why the heck my Sony sensor and my Nikon camera can't shoot live video of the aurora, but the Sony sensor and a Sony camera can?
Yeah, tell me about it.
I don't know. But what Sony doing, which is pretty neat, is they're actually bringing like super slow motion to the smartphone. I gotta say, you know, each iteration of smartphones, the camera just gets better and better in terms of what they can do. And here they're talking about how they can shoot 960 frames per second at 720p. Now, 720p is obviously the highest resolution in the world, but still, 960 frames per second is pretty crazy, just in terms of what you can do with that small form factor. So,
yeah.
Excuse me, I want to talk about, what do you guys think of this innovation? Because I think it is innovative. It's a next step. I mean, I think I can do up to 240 frames per second on my phone. But you know, it's I think a next step. And does slow motion something you use to tell your story, to tell visual journalism? So let's see if we can throw it to Ron really quick. Let's see how much background noise is in Ron's feed, or if Ron can hear me. All right, no Ron. Let's go to Carl. Carl with the win.
Carl with the win. I think just like any other visual innovation, how it's used really kind of sets the tone for how valuable it is. I've seen slow motion overused in TV programs where it's trying to make these really artsy shots and slow motion of stuff that I don't give a crap about. And why are you wasting valuable airspace with doing a slow motion shot of wood shaves coming off of a screw being, driven into a stud on the wall? But I think in that there are a lot of different options kind of continually growing for people who want to do visual storytelling. I think that slow motion can be a cool tool. And one of my problems, the more and more digital cameras get to capture great shots and do really cool things, the less and less people feel like they need people like us, photographers. But in this case though, there's not a lot of kind of you're not going to get a lot of money out of slow motion shots, so for somebody to use it as kind of part of their video blog, telling a story about something, it's pretty cool. As far as when to use it, I think it's best to use it at a time when it matters to see something in slow motion. There's some stuff that I don't really need to see in slow motion, like the example on the promotional video, shattering glass. That's okay. It's not really exciting. I'm not getting enhanced visually by seeing that in slow motion, but poofing colorful clouds of different color, being powdered, different colors is pretty cool. It's visually stimulating. So it's just how it's used. I mean, using HDR techniques in still photography have their place, but a lot of times they're overused and they just look like crap. And people like them, and it's disturbing that they like them because they're so crappy. So I see this as kind of somewhere in there.
Yeah, most certainly.
Back, you've been doing more documentary work. I mean, does slow motion ever find its way into any of your work?
I haven't really. I mean, I've used it to. It's useful sometimes. Like if I can shoot at 60 frames per second on whatever camera I'm using, then I'll use it because then I can take a shot that a clip that only lasted like, I cut it out too early, or I needed to slow down a moment so that somebody on camera can see the person that walked by or whatever. That would be, it'd be nice to have that option later on. But I mean, the problem is that you're not going to film 120 frame. You're not going to shoot it super slow frames per second that you need all the time. For everything. Otherwise, your hard drives would just explode. But the camera stuff, I'm not like, or for I'm sorry, the phone stuff, I'm not. I'm happy that the innovation is there, and maybe then the want will be there. I mean, it's cool to make an animated GIF out of something. I mean, that's basically what everybody uses it for on, on their iPhone, so that you can just, somebody jumped into a pool. That's great. The dog jumped up and caught the ball, and you can slow down that one moment. One thing I am looking forward to, Canon, and I know I'm saying this because I'm actually looking at buying the C100 series or something like that. But the C200 is rumored to be coming out relatively soon, and they're going to have 1080p at 120 frames per second. This is rumor world. At least premiumbeat.com has it. And once it goes that kind of level of speed goes into the higher end, but like kind of the prosumer level equipment, or it goes in my DSLRs and stuff like that, it might be more interesting to play around with for moments. Especially being inspired. I don't know if anybody watches Anthony Bourdain's show on CNN, which is absolutely fantastic. And their camera people use slow motion all the time to emphasize a moment, and unfortunately it is kind of the wood shavings thing, but usually it's like watching a chef move really quickly or something like that. And if you ever want to see a good use of slow motion, I highly recommend watching that show, Parts Unknown with Anthony Bourdain, because that's actually, from my mind, like very, very good use of it when it comes to like documentary filming and news kind of filming. But one of the problems is with slow motion in general is you have to change settings, put your camera into that level of frame rate, and then shoot it. So you kind of have to know what you're doing ahead of time. And I think that's why it's not used well, is that you have to take that moment and, set it up. And not a lot of documentary filmmaking or news filmmaking, you really have that moment, unless it is like you say, Carl, like, we're going to screw this, this screw into this piece of wood, or shave this, piece of wood. Like that moment is set up, and I can set up for that. And I can light for it, which is something that you find out very quickly you need to do for most high frame rates, slow motion work, that you need to have a much, much better lighting.
Zach, 120 frames per second at 1080p is impressive. But you know what's more impressive?
What's that?
180 frames per second at 1080p, which the Panasonic GH5 can do without breaking a sweat. I'm just saying that. Don't mind the camera and the frame here. All I'm saying is, so I actually did a bunch of slow motion recently. I'm working on a project right now, and I went on. I did a little bit slow-mo, of course, 180 frames per second, 1080p slow-mo. And what I kind of like, the problem is that the subject matter I was shooting was not like what you would normally think of as something that would be, how do you say, effective with slow-mo. Like, for instance, we were on a boat, right? And yeah, there were some shots I could get of like the water as it kind of rushed past the boat, that worked effectively with that 1080p. But, the subject that I was shooting, the person, wasn't doing anything that was like necessarily like exciting in 1080p. They weren't doing stunts with powdered color. But, and again, what I think where you can effectively use 1080p is even in those sort of slow or just nothing going on type shots, just maybe like simple things like hand movements or speaking or whatnot. Depending on what you're trying to get across with that moment, you can, make an effective, well, I hope so. I'll find out. I haven't put together the product, but I'm hoping I can use that sort of just simple sort of these casual interactions between people in super slow motion and see how they work to effectively tell a story. So,
yeah.
I'm
hopeful. The one thing that, like, you watch, we were joking around about Guardians of the Galaxy 2 beforehand, and James Gunn effectively uses, he uses it as a gimmick. He uses it kind of the same way that Wes Anderson, Rushmore, and oh God, what else does he do? Anyway, he does the slow motion moments where, like, they use it effectively. You have to be very, very careful where you use it and how it works in the moment. Because I've seen a lot of gratuitous slow motion, people who, fell in love with Wes Anderson, and they're like, we'll do everything that way.
Does he use it like that one director uses lens flare in his like Star Trek movies and stuff?
J.J. Abrams.
Yeah,
J.J. Abrams?
Yeah.
Is it that gratuitous?
Wes Anderson does. Most
Although
certainly.
apparently after Abrams was admonished by his wife after the second Star Trek movie for using too much lens, admitted using less. So
Yeah. Well, see, the problem with Abrams, if people don't know this reference, go watch the first two of his Star Treks, and you'll understand that.
Pause the podcast. Go watch them. Come back.
It's not real. It's not real lens flare. He digitally added it. So that's the problem. Having a bunch of lens flare is fun. I love lens flare, especially in still photography. But when you go in and digitally add it, because everything's on a flat light sound. You have to add depth to it.
Zach, in all fairness, he has to digitally add it because there's scenes in space. So it's not like they actually had real ships out there with real cameras filming in space.
What? You tell me this now? No, but in the scenes inside of buildings, inside of sets, you didn't set up the light to do that. There's no light. Like somewhere on the internet, you could find a lighting breakdown of what a J.J. Abrams set must have looked like, because there's 14 lights everywhere, so that every time the camera moved, there's a lens flare from this side, and then another one from that side, and one coming down the center of the frame. Yes. Anyway,
I just want a movie that's nothing but lens flare.
We
should talk about that for like an hour on the show next week.
Lens flare.
Our favorite type of lens
Dutch
flare.
angles.
Ron, lens flare. Slow motion, yay or nay?
I recently shot a ping pong tournament, and I used slow motion on that one.
Nice. I think that's a worthy subject
for it. Yeah.
Good job.
I felt it was appropriate.
Yes, I agree.
Nice. I don't hold that against you
facial
whatsoever.
expressions look great in slow.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, getting like that, exuding and those grunts and everything like that. It's gonna be great.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's move on to our final topic this evening. We are talking about technology because we always talk about gear. What are we talking about, Zach? What is our last topic this evening?
The Ingenious Film Lab app.
Yes. Now you are actually dealing with film right now and scanning it.
Yes.
So let's start with you. I mean, is this something you would use? Does this have any merit and any sort of meaning in your life?
It doesn't have meaning. I've been looking for meaning in my life for a long time. Wouldn't
it be great if you could find meaning in your life from an app? That would be so wonderful.
Oh, I downloaded the meeting app. Anyway,
Number 42.
Yes, good reference. I don't know if I can angle my camera or angle my computer because it's not on. But I'm using the right now the V600 Epson Perfection scanner to scan some of my old slides. I have a whole bunch of, I think I've done this discussion before, but a whole bunch of Kodachrome slides that shot back in 2005 on a cross-country road trip. And other than one of my family members sent them off to, I think it was ended up being, I don't know what processing place, but then they came back with CDs as scans. They were pretty terrible scans. Clearly the color and everything else was off, and there was no dust cleaning on it. So basically I've got this stack of CDs that are completely useless other than referential, oh, that's what I have, but I don't know if anything came out. So I'm starting this process, which you can go on my Instagram, it's ZD Roberts, and maybe once a week I upload. Hopefully I haven't been that good lately because I've been traveling, but once a week I upload a bunch of photos and you can see them. But I like this a lot. It's only $160 on the scale of things, 160, 180. And it's also a good flatbed scanner. Also does medium format. That's the Epson V600. But the idea of doing this, if I wasn't a quote unquote professional photographer, this sounds awesome. you know, just random people find a bunch of negatives and the original photos are long lost, and you either want them up on Facebook or you want to make, you know, 8x10 prints of it, which I would assume based on the video and some of the little things I read about it, I would assume you'd be able to do. Like, this is a great invention. You know, it sounds like something with a little bit of explanation my mom could use, and my mom has a negative amount of she still has my sister's holdover AOL account as her email address, like, just to show you how technically deficient she is. Sorry, Mom, a day after Mother's Day. But like, I think that this is something that she could actually do if she wanted to go through and do this and not just rely on me to use my scanner for old images or whatever. So I think this is awesome because everybody already has their phone, and I can't think of anybody who wants. I know so many photographers, and I don't know how. Maybe 3 or 4 of them have film scanners. Even the ones that shoot film, I don't know if they have film scanners always because they rely on some other place to do it for them. So I like this idea.
Yeah, no, I think it's neat. I think it's perfect for the casual user. I don't think any pro user or anyone who actually would want to archive their negatives would use this method, just because, you know, you're never going to get as superb or as high resolution. I think it's just scanning the actual film negative. But I think it's, you know, good for just somebody who has a stack of negatives in their closet that, you know, aren't going to invest in a film scanner or the time it takes to scan film, because that's a huge commitment too. That takes forever.
Yeah, tell me about it.
But, you know, if you got, you know, a bunch of things, you know, in your closet and you want to at least get them online to share online where quality doesn't matter as much, yeah, I think this is a great idea. How about you, Carl? You probably have some film in your closet.
I do indeed. I will say that this app was made for Throwback Thursday postings on Facebook.
Yeah.
Yeah, because really that's what it's for. For people who might still have negatives sitting in those old, you know, those little index card boxes that people would, you get your packet back from the lab and have the negatives in a sleeve in the front and all the prints in the back, and they don't really have an easy way to share that stuff for Throwback Thursday. So this is perfect. I didn't get a chance to see the whole video, but I question whether or not you can use this app unless you have a light box to illuminate the negative or the slide. I have a huge light box, but, you know, I'm a slide geek, so that works. But for me, though, I still need to, my scanner I use for slide film and negative film, 35 millimeter, is my Nikon Coolscan 4ED.
It's much better.
Long ago, Nikon stopped producing drivers to support it, so it's actually doesn't function as well as it used to for that reason. So my stuff I get, you know, I send out to get scanned with a Tango drum scanner. That's kind of the quality I need. But yeah, for these kind of snapshot uses that are, you know, because the smartphone has replaced the point and shoot camera, and I use a smartphone as my snapshot camera. It's kind of nice to have it so I don't have to lug around the big DSLR and lenses everywhere just to take snapshots. So to have the ability to digitize those snapshot memories, I think will be pretty cool. I think one of the flaws, though, is if you're just a casual snapshot user and you want to post for Throwback Thursday #TBT, are you going to want to spend $2 a month for the subscription service to actually use this app? Is it going to matter that much to you? So I think that's kind of a bad business decision on the front end. I think you should get people hooked to the product first, and then create differentiating levels where there's like the basic, but if you want the advanced features, then go to the subscription service. I think that would be the smarter way to go. Or, you know, wait until you have people hooked on your product, eliminate the software version and have only subscription like Adobe. You know, but so I think there are different ways to take that approach that I think might make it more accessible and really fulfill, I think, from what it's really designed to a need to meet, which is digitizing those old family snapshots.
Well, I mean, the clear one of the online print places, was it Snap? I can't think of any of them right now because I don't use any of them. But one of those companies, like Kodak Kodak needs to buy this app. Like they just need to wait until it gets fully developed, buy it, and then attach it to their print, the print side where they have a print where you can just upload your digital files and then send them away. Then this would be perfect. To me, this is a great thing because then you can buy like all they have to do is you have to buy a $25. I mean, it is crazy. Like I have to buy one of those. You can buy on Amazon a really nice, like what the guy in the video has, an LED, like it's just a really super thin little light panel type thing. For like $30, you can get what he has, and it works great. I mean, you can look at the video on Petapixel, and you can see that it works pretty damn good, especially compared to the like old school professional light boxes that because I'm looking at I don't have one right now for some reason, and they start at like $65.
Let me get here out of the way.
Right behind you, I see you. Yeah, they're like, it's like I would love to have one of those, but that's like what, $150 probably now.
I can't remember what I paid for it.
Yeah.
I imagine you could just DIY yourself one really easy.
Oh yeah.
Too much work, right?
Anytime I hear do it yourself and I start looking at them like, so that has to work out to be, I pay myself to spend 12 hours doing this thing because I'm not that technologically know-how. So I'm only paying myself $8 an hour to make this thing. Forget it. I'll buy it.
Ron, how about you, man? An app that can scan your film, yay or nay?
I will not use such a thing, only because all my film has been destroyed. In a terrible accident back in 2004. I lost all my film.
Wow, what happened?
I have a pure digital life now. You entrust. They say keep a backup copy with somebody. Well, I kept all my copies with somebody. And then they moved away and left it in the house. So.
Oh, wait, what? They moved out and left your film in their house? I don't...
They left all my stuff in their house, and my film was part of it. So, yeah, I lost all my Marine Corps stuff, all my Japanese stuff, all my film stuff, and I had a pure digital existence after that. I have no analog life.
Yeah.
I have no,
oh, man.
no record
Sorry for your loss.
Existence.
I still have a binder with all my negatives sitting in, actually in here, in this office. I have a binder with negatives somewhere. I've scanned in most of the stuff I care about. But yeah, ever since about 2001, I've been shooting digital and never went back.
Well, that's why this thing is, go ahead, Ron.
No, I was just saying, pardon me. I was just saying, right. However, I do think it's a groovy little app. I think it's great. I think it's really handy. Looks like a good thing. I've seen the video. Looks like full featured. Regarding $2 a month, sounds ridiculous. After you scan your film, you're done. You're not going to shoot more film. We're all digital now, so I don't see the point of subscription. But apart from that, I turn it over to whoever was next.
Yeah. The monthly pricing model makes no sense unless it comes with like free prints a month But either way, like it should be like. It should just be like a $10 app or something like that, and then that's it. Or advertising supported or something. Like so many of these things are. I don't know how many. I can't remember the last time I actually paid for an app. So that's something. But either way. But like the number of people that I know that like lost so many of their photos because they didn't have a way easily, because it's really, really difficult unless you live in a big city to get things scanned. Or you have some level of technical know-how, or you have access to a scanner or something like that. But even then, like that, I've scanned like 40 photos and it's taken like 3 days.
Or you're willing to send your prize negatives out to a scanning agency.
It came down to a guy who worked for. He had a whole bunch of negatives that we were doing a story, and he shot a bunch of negatives when he was in Tibet, back when it was even more under occupation, and he was followed by a Chinese minder and everything like that. And what we ended up doing, even after buying a negative scanner that just didn't like work with Apple computers, and this is like 2008, we ended up putting them on a projector, and I ended up photographing the screen, like, and that was the level that we could do. And that, I think that's the point that they are right now. And he was thankfully they were very high up, but his entire apartment got flooded during Sandy. So thank Lord that those photos were high up, because I know they're still in existence. But I mean, like, he lives in LA now, and like, I would offer to scan them all for him, but how do you really trust shipping those things? Because they have all those shipping services that you can ship. Like, I have a bunch of 16 millimeter film that I would love to get developed, or not developed, but scanned into for a DVD or a digital file for my freshman when I was in film school. But the only places I know of, either I have to go down to New York City and drop them off somewhere, and they're super expensive there, or the online services where you ship them to some random place, and I guess you hope to God that you'll get them back and that they don't get lost. I mean, I trust the Postal Service quite a bit, but not enough for literally something that there's no possible way I can ever reproduce, like, ever. So yeah, there's nothing I'm going to ship that's like that.
Definitely. All right.
So
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Carl.
I was going to ask Zach, how much space does that film take up? I mean, how portable is it?
What, the 16 millimeter film or the scan? The 16 millimeter film? Oh, it's just I mean, I only shot a small amount because, 16 millimeter film is massively expensive to shoot and develop. So it's not that much. It's just like a small, like, priority box maybe is everything I shot.
Next time you come up to Anchorage, I know somebody here in town who could digitize that for you.
I will possibly take you up on that offer.
Yeah. You can carry it. It's going to be safe.
I'll probably drive up at some point, so done it before.
All right. Well, let's see. Let us know how that goes, guys. That'll be interesting. And then you can put the film online on YouTube. All right. Well, let's close up tonight's show with one thing I actually wanted to ask you, Zach. It's just came out in the news today.
Yeah.
Since you did a documentary about voting rights,
Yes.
You must be pleased to know that the Supreme Court will not reevaluate the case about the sort of ID laws in Virginia, right?
North Carolina.
North Carolina,
And unfortunately, let me just grab the documentary film. If you're watching on video, you can see the cover of The Best Democracy Money Can Buy. If you actually go on my Twitter account right now, I'm actually running a contest. You can win a free copy. All you have to do is literally retweet a tweet that I did. The unfortunate thing at the same time that this happened, which is very good news, North Carolina is still a member of Crosscheck, which is a voting suppression program run by Chris Kobach, who literally was just named to the voter commission that Donald Trump set up to uncover voter fraud, that supposedly all these people are voting twice, that people are voting in say, Indiana and then voting in North Carolina. And they
millions of illegals, Zach.
They claim that not millions of illegals, not necessarily even, that's not even a whole thing, but legal voters are voting in two different places. So if I lived in North Carolina, I'm voting in North Carolina, then I'm jumping on a flight to Indiana and voting in there, and I'm voting 2 times for Hillary Clinton or Barack Obama or whoever. So yeah, I did an entire documentary film with Greg Palast, and it's got Rosario Dawson in it. It's got oh crap, I feel really bad. Oh, Willie Nelson, Ed Asner plays Santa Claus, Bobby Kennedy Jr., Shailene Woodley from the Divergent series. She's much better in this film than she was in Divergent. And Richard Belzer from Law and Order, and from, more importantly though, from Homicide: Life on the Street, the best show that has ever been on television.
And an X-Files episode.
Yes, that's true. Playing the same character in all of them, I believe.
Homicide character, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
thank you for that cross promotion.
Figure if anybody would have an opinion on it, it would be you.
Yeah.
Anyway, so let's close up the shop with the promos. So
very quickly, I want to add something, because it's actually the importance of photojournalism. Right now, I'm working with ACLU out in Kansas, to get access to Chris Kobach, the guy that I was talking about before that's running Crosscheck, this voter suppression program. He met with Donald Trump, I think it was down in Mar-a-Lago, and he had in his hands, for some reason not in a folder like you might do, his plans for two different things, for Homeland Security, immigration plan, building the wall. This, by the way, Chris Kobach is the guy that told Donald Trump, we need to have a wall and we need to have this entire like immigration system set up. This is the guy behind it. But he also has ideas to change up the National Voting Act, VRA, and Voting Rights Act and everything. Thankfully, a fantastic, I think, I can't remember whether it was Reuters or Getty photographer was there and took a photo with her I think it was her with her telephoto lens of the document that he's holding. And so we pulled up, they pulled up the images, and you can Google search this. Google search Kobach and documents, I think probably should come up. And thanks to this photojournalist, ACLU out in Kansas has now brought Kobach to court to get these documents, and they got a hold of them. He tried to put a hold on them so they couldn't release them publicly, but we're working on that right now. But this is one of the really important things of photojournalism is that if no one was there photographing it, if you just had print reporters with their cell phones or whatever, but somebody took a high res full frame image with their DSLR and were able to zoom in on it, and you could actually read the bottom and top like 30 lines of the document. And it lost him. He was set to be the Homeland Security Director. It basically lost him that job. And that's something a photojournalist did with just taking a normal image. She clearly didn't see what she was taking because she's far away. It was taken with a telephoto. But that's the importance of photojournalism right there. Yeah.
All right. Carl, where can people find you?
Well, you can find me, my website is arclight-ak.com and Arclight AK on Facebook, and then also Alaska AK Photog on Facebook, Alaska Photog on Twitter, and Arclight AK on Instagram.
All right. Ron?
You can find me every week right here on Around the Lens. Every Monday, this very time.
Right. I like that. Zach?
There you go. You can find me obviously here every week too, aroundthelens.com. And you can also find me at zdroberts.com. And basically all social media is ZD Roberts. And right now, like I said, you can go on Twitter and search me at ZD Roberts and find that tweet, and you can possibly win a copy of the DVD. But more importantly, I want you right now to go to Around the Lens Facebook page and look for the gorgeous image of Carl Johnson's photography of Bristol Bay. And all you have to do is do those three things that are listed right there on the Facebook page, and you could win a copy of his award-winning photojournalist I don't know how you describe it thing. I would say photojournalism with essays by, was it Sandra Day O'Connor?
Forward by Sandra Day O'Connor, and then essays by 6 well-known Alaskan writers.
Yep. It's a fantastic read and a gorgeous photos.
Great. Yeah, please, everyone, enter that contest. Literally, there's only like a couple of people have entered so far, so enter, please, as soon as you can. We got still half a month left to go. Do not delay. You are not competing with thousands of people, although that'd be great. You're like last week, there were like 13 people or 14 people entered. So again, enter. Trust me, it's not going to take you any time, and you'll may win something out of it. Just like our last month's winner, Paul Burbage. If you're listening, Paul, thank you. He did an excellent review of his bag and sort of what he puts in it, and did that for the website and the Facebook page. So by all means, go check out the photos and videos of what's in his bag, which is the Signature 13 that he won. But again, going back to Around the Lens, we just posted this and during the show. So you should go to AroundTheLens.com right now, and you can read about the top 10 flying request demands from photojournalists. This is from Marcus DiPaolo, or I hope I'm saying that right. Talking about basically, he travels a lot. Like, what did you say? Once every 2.4 days or something he travels?
That was I think it was about his average last year, because he was on the campaign trail for Getty and a couple other places, and this year it's already at 3.1. He said. So he knows it's definitely in rant form, but I feel like anybody, especially photojournalists out there who are always lugging gear around, will feel a couple of these numbers, a couple of those requests for the rest of air travelers. So.
All right, so go to AroundTheLens.com, check that out. Let us know what you think. Leave a comment. Let's start a discussion. That's all this is, Just want to have a discussion with you all about what you think about what we're doing. So that has been episode 74 for Around the Lens. I want to thank our panelist, Carl Johnson, for hanging out with us. And, of course, my two co-hosts, Ron and Zach. Thank you so much for taking your time to be here on the show. I am David J. Murphy for Around the Lens episode 74. I messed that up. Let's try that again. For Zach Roberts and Ron Hamilton, I am David J. Murphy. This has been episode 74 of Around the Lens, and we are out.